moment of silence and in lieu of prayer, and so that we can declare this meeting open. Just a minute. Colleagues, I've flighted the agenda there. There are very few items. Number 2 is confirmation of the agenda, roll call and apologies, announcement, welcome address, faculty address. Those are our standing items. So our main item is number 7, which is Sace address. Dr. Ndomato, if you can handle this item so that I can go back to, if it is possible on a side, so that if there are people who will want to add or subtract anything in the agenda, in the program, maybe they could indicate by the show of a hand.
Thank you, Dr.
If you can assist.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
I can't see.
Can you hear me, Dr. Skota?
So it means
Dr. Skota?
the agenda is okay. I'm not sure whether I'm speaking alone. I'm alone.
We can hear you.
Are you? Am I audible, Dr. Ndomato? So I will use you because I know you are in the meeting, so that you can confirm whether I'm speaking to myself or
no, you are audible.
I'm speaking to you guys.
You are audible, Dr. Skota, but it's like you can't hear us. Can you hear me?
Dr. Ndomato? Hello?
Mr. Leonard.
You're not no problem.
Hello?
Mr. Leonard.
Dr.
Yes.
Ndomato, we can hear you. You're very much audible. Even Dr. Ndomato can hear you his side. It's just that you're the one that's not hearing him.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Skota, it's like you are the only one who can't hear me. Everybody in the meeting can hear me.
Oh. You can hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, but I wonder if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Colleagues, the agenda has just been read out to all of you, and you can also see it as it has been shown on the screen. The question that was raised was whether people have got other items that they would want to add to what has already been presented to you in the agenda. Can I just get those items that you feel should be added to the agenda, or if not, you can approve what we have and then we move on? Is there? All right, I will take it that all right, so I will take it that people are approving that we should use the agenda as it has been given to us.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Skota. I wonder if that was the item that you wanted me to handle.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Who is here in our from our school who can render the welcome address and the faculty address? If you in HAD you can see. You can't see.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, Prof. Mlowezi.
It's, I'm in the meeting, but after seeing that there is no one I can render this
Yes.
Yes.
That's what we wanted because most
Okay.
of the items are standing.
On behalf of our director, acting director, Professor Runari, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you all, the students who are ready to go for teaching practice and ready to receive the license. License meaning the Sace certificate, because without Sace certificate, you are not going to be regarded as a teacher. So feel free when the person from the Sace department present the information to you. Make sure that you write something down so that when you go to apply for this Sace, everything will be simple for you. Instead of going up and down, you will know what to do. You will know all what is needed. So make sure that you take a pen, you take a book wherein you will write everything that is going to be presented. And I want to wish you all that when you are busy attending this meeting, make sure that you ask the question where you need clarity, rather than to leave the person from Sace without addressing some of the questions that you have. By saying this, I want to welcome you all and then participate all the time. I thank you, Dr. Chikota and Dr. Ndwamato. From now, I'm leaving. I will be out because, you know, Dr. Chikota, I'm in the meeting currently. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Colleagues, we want to hand this item after the welcome address by our HOD, Professor Mrovezi. We can shoot straight to number 7 because that's the main address of the day. I don't know how Sace has arranged the presentations. Maybe they'll take time to address us. Can I get an indication from Sace how they are going to do it?
Good afternoon, Dr. Chikota, the colleagues. I'm going to handle the session, the presentation by Sace.
Okay.
Can I just shoot?
Yeah, until we finish and everything. Until we close.
Yes. I also have to acknowledge that I've got my colleagues here.
Okay.
Mem Koloboto, who is the registration manager, who is operating from head office, and also the assistant manager, Mr. Mashaba. Can you please unshare so that I can share the presentation? Thank you.
Yes, I did.
Thank you. This is the presentation from the South African Council for Educators. And I have to say that because the request was to deal with quite a broad subject, I will try to incorporate most of the critical matters, and that includes the Sace establishment, the Sace Act, the registration matters, and also the ethics matters, because I could see that the request was to say that we need to present Sace ethical clearance and registration, Sace code of conduct, Sace temporary or permanent license. Well, I also have to greet the students, which I believe we believe as the council are the most important people in this session. First, I'm flagging the legislative framework because it is important for the students to understand that why are we existing, what gives us the mandate to exist, what gives us the mandate to do what we are doing, and so on and so forth. I've highlighted the national education, all these legislative frameworks are important, but I've just highlighted a few which I'm going to, from time to time, keep on referring to them. Like one, the National Education Policy Act number 90 of 1996, which is number 27. the Employment of Educators Act number 76 of 1998, the South African Council for Educators Act. But we all know that the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa is the umbrella of everything that any of the employee public servant operates under. Then the question is who or what is Sace? Because people normally hear the saying that Sace, what is Sace? What does Sace stand for? Sace stands for South African Council for Educators. And Sace is a juristic person, which means it's recognized by law. That also states that Sace has got rights and responsibilities that seek to professionalize the teaching profession. It is a regulatory body, which means Sace regulates the teaching profession with the purpose of improving and maintaining the status and image of the teaching profession. Mostly there are questions that are normally asked to say, what is your responsibility as Sace? Who do you stand with? We do not stand with the teachers. We do not stand with the student teachers. We do not stand with the governing body, but we stand with the teaching for the teaching profession. And to achieve the purpose of ensuring that there is a credible teaching profession, there are various mechanisms, quality assurance mechanisms, and professional standards. Sace has got a vision. I'm just going to read it as is, which is inspiring a credible teaching profession. I believe when you think of something that is credible, you think of something that is trustworthy, something that has been validated, something that is reliable. So which means whatever or whoever that gets registered within the teaching profession, even the parents must have that trust to say their learners are in good hands. The mission is to register fit to teach practice educators and lecturers, promote their continuing professional development, and maintain the profession's professional teaching and ethical standards. How was Sace established? It is important for students to understand that the South African Council for Educators was established after reaching an agreement between the ELRC. ELRC, it's a body that deals with the labor matters in the education system, which was then subsequently encapsulated in the Employment of Educators Act number 76 of 1998. I'm going to specifically touch on section 27, subsection 1. Employment of Educators Act number 76 and the National Education Policy Act are the acts that I'm going to touch on mostly when I'm dealing with the issues of registration, because these are the acts that allocated powers to the South African Council for Educators as per the section 28 of the EEA. Which powers does Sace have? That is the question that most people ask. Why does Sace have so many powers? I believe because I've already given the background of the Employment of Educators Act, the National Policy Act, the South African Council for Educators Act, and all other legislative frameworks. They give Sace the powers, but as I've previously said, that the specific powers are encapsulated in the Employment of Educators Act. I'm starting there before I go further to the South African Council for Educators Act number 31 of 2000. Which powers does Sace have? Sace must establish minimum criteria and procedures for the registration or provisional registration of educators. Please excuse my voice. I think I'm catching a flu somehow. I've made a highlight of all the sections where these powers can be obtained from. Sace also keeps a register of the names of all persons who are registered or provisionally registered. I'm still going to briefly explain the issues of registration, provisional registration at a later stage. Sace promotes the professional development. I'm not gonna touch on that, but students must be aware that as soon as they become the employees of the Department of Education, they are legally required to professionally develop themselves continually. Then Sace established a code of professional ethics for educators, which applies to all educators who are registered or provisional registered with the council. Then for everything to happen in a fair manner and equitable manner, there are procedures that are applicable, and such that there is a committee that investigates when there are allegations against the teachers. We call that committee a fit to teach committee. Once there are allegations, that committee comes in. Sace Act number 31 of 2000. It's a diverse, the council is a diverse council. I've highlighted the various stakeholders who participate or who are involved in the council for a reason that when students act or do anything within their teaching profession, they must know that these people, all these people are responsible for whatever that says the student teacher must do, or the teacher must do, or anybody who practice in the teaching profession. The organized profession, the Department of Education, the school governing bodies, the Council for Higher Education, the Council for Further Education and Training institutions, the national body representing the independent schools, and then the CEO completes the council as the member of the council. It is for noting that when the students go into the teaching profession, well, while they are students, they will remain students. But once they get appointed, they will find that there are various teacher unions in the teaching profession or in their schools. It is also important to alert the students to say all the recognized teacher unions are part of the council and they form majority of the council. So which means whatever legislation or whatever regulation that is issued out by the council, the teacher unions are part of it. To mention the teacher unions, we are mentioning NATU, NAPTOSA, PEU, SATU, and SAOU. The Sace Act applies to all educators, lecturers, and management staff of the colleges. What I've highlighted here is just to highlight that this is what the Sace Act says. In fact, what I'm talking about here now, I've just made an extract of the South African Council for Educators Act number 31 of 2000. The Act is applicable to educators and lecturers and management who are appointed in terms of the EEA, which I previously spoke about, in terms of the South African Schools Act. The South African Schools Act, it's the act that is normally used by the governing bodies, which is about the governance, and also it speaks also onto the issues of management of schools. All educators were appointed in terms of the FET Colleges Act number 16 of 2006, in terms of the Public Service Act, in terms of appointed at an independent schools. I also want to mention that some of the educators who are practicing in the independent schools, they have this belief to say they are exempted from a registration, which is a myth. Everybody who practices it's compulsory for the person to register with the council, and also including those that are operating or are practicing within the adult learning centers. The council has got 3 core mandates. The teacher, I've highlighted 2 because as per the invitation, it was speaking to the issues of ethical clearance and registration, the Sace Code of Conduct, the permanent registration or the permanent license, as the invitation was saying. So I've highlighted teacher registration, and also I've highlighted the maintenance of ethical standard. But there is a 3rd core mandate, which is a professional development. And it is important to say, which is professional development. It's important to say that SACE is not, does not provide any professional development, but facilitates professional development. There is another division within the South African Council for Educators, which is teacher professionalization. And that division was established to ensure that there is quality assurance within the teaching profession. Well, if somebody looks closer into the professionalization, teacher professionalization, there are professional teaching standards that were created, and they are currently in full force. Says register. Says. Getting interrupted.
Panorama, can you please, our students, switch off your
Okay, thank you. SACE registration is compulsory, as I've previously said, and it's as per the SACE Act number 31 of 2000. You'll remember that I've said the SACE Act number 31 of 2000, or SACE establishment, was necessitated by the ELRC, which then translated into the EEA and then the NEPA, all those acts. Then in particular, Chapter 3 deals with the compulsory registration of educators, which states that in Chapter 3, Section 21, subsection 1, a person who qualifies for registration in terms of this Act must register with the Council prior to being appointed as an educator. You do not need to wait until you get registered, as we keep on talking about the provisional registration, which I'm going to unpack a little bit later. No person may be employed as an educator by any employer unless the person is registered with the Council. Teachers and prospective teachers, they need to be registered. What do we mean by the prospective teachers? We mean the students, those who are still studying towards the teaching qualification. SACE teacher registrations have different categories. I'm not going to mention all of them, but I'm going to touch on the basic ones, which we all need to know, and I'm going to unpack them a little bit later. We've got normal registrations, provisional registrations, conditional, special categories. Let me just leave this here. I'm going to unpack everything at a later stage. The Employment of Educators Act number 76 of 1998, Chapter 3. When you look at Chapter 3, which speaks about the appointments, promotions, and transfers of educators, Section 3B states that the head of department may only decline the recommendation of the governing body of the public school or the council of the further education and training institution if the candidate is not registered or does not qualify for the registration as an educator with the South African Council for Educators. So this basically means that no one can practice in the education system or can stand in front of the learners if the person is not registered with the South African Council for Educators. Then let me come to teacher registrations. Well, we always encourage that applications for new registrations must be done via the online registrations, and I've included the portal where one can do the registrations. Instead of saying you are going to wait until you pay and then come to the offices of Sace, it is always advisable, and it minimizes the influx in the Sace offices, so that when people come for re-registration or for updates, there is not much, there are not many people who are waiting in the queues. Well, these are the categories which I've mentioned earlier on. The normal category, which is for the professionally qualified educators, those who have professional teaching qualifications. Here, I've just mentioned a few, which is the education diploma, the B.Ed, the Pgce. There are various diplomas. I can just mention the NPDE and whatever. I'm not going to touch on those ones. Then the provisional registration, because we are talking to the students here. The student teachers, they get provisionally registered. The provisional registration is not for employment purposes, and this is renewable annually, which means it is the responsibility of the student to say, once I've registered, I received the registration certificate, which is in a form of a letter. It is the responsibility of the student to make sure that when that date is approaching expiry, when that certificate is approaching expiry, the student does not wait for the expiry date, because that will make the office to have an influx. Then it is also for noting to say that there are no fees that are accumulated while the student is registered provisionally. That was a decision that was taken later on. Then the special categories, there are a number of special categories, which includes the ECD. I've noticed that when people come to the office, they come with the qualifications that have got credits that are below the minimum requirements. That is why I've highlighted some of the credits to say ECD. For ECD, they have to have 120 credits or more. I know that with the university students, not many of them have got qualifications that are lower than ECD, the lower than 120 credits. Then the TVET educators, the TVET lecturers, the TVET, the Waldorf, the Montessori, the therapists, because we register different people, because it is important to remember that I said earlier on, anyone who stands in front of the children or of the learners must be registered. So these different categories, they make it possible that even the social workers, even the psychologists and so on, those that are stationed in the schools, which we call the full service schools, they must be registered, and they must have 360 credits or more. And current registration with the body for those who are social workers, psychologists, and the therapists. Then we have got another category with another special category of educators who have got religious qualifications. Those qualifications, they must be 360 credits or more. The conditional registration, let me touch on the conditional registrations, because I know that the university students, sometimes they come to the office or to any office, or they apply online for the conditional registration. The conditional registration is the registration if, let's say, a student has got an initial qualification, take for instance the BSc, I'm just taking BSc. Let's say a person has got a BSc and wants to go and practice teaching. the person cannot go and practice teaching unless the person has been registered by the South African Council for Educators. But the registration of that person is on condition that the person must fulfill the requirement of being professionally qualified, which means that the person must acquire the Pgce within a maximum period of 3 years. Then once registered, an annual levy is payable to remain in the council register. It's not that when a person is registered, you can register and then you remain at home whilst you are professionally registered, you are professionally qualified and registered with Sace. You just remain at home just because you are not employed. It's not about being employed, but it's about remaining in the council register. And the levy, it's 16.50 Rand per month for those who are employed, and those who are not employed or are employed by the independent institutions, they can make a payment of 198 rands a year, which is a current levy. If the person is not employed, it is the responsibility of a person, of an individual, to make payment, because if a person does not make the payment accumulates. You will remember when I was talking about the student teachers, I said there is no fee that is accumulated. But once you are registered, there is a fee that is accumulated, which is a monthly levy or an annual levy. So it is important that you visit the Sace website for the specific details further than what I was talking about. I'm just going to shoot straight to the basic requirements for the required documents of all registrations. But it is important to note that if a person has got a foreign qualification, whether the person is a South African or is not a South African, a foreigner, if the qualification is a foreign qualification, let's say you have acquired the qualification in Zimbabwe, in Botswana, or wherever, those qualifications, they must be SAQA evaluated. Well, the basic requirements, I'm taking just the basic requirements, of which the more requirements or explicit requirements are available on the Sace website. The basic ones, the person must complete the Sace registration application form, sign it, make sure that no space remains unfilled, because if the person fills the form incompletely, whether you are filling it online or you are visiting the office, you must make sure that the form is completely filled. Then the identity document for the South African citizens is a must. And if a person has an ID or the smart card ID card, the person must make sure that both sides of the ID are attached. These attachments, they must be in a PDF form. What we have noticed, like for instance, because I'm talking here from the provincial office, some people, when they get into the office, they come with documents that are very blurry, that are very black. They come with the documents that are in pictures and so on and so forth. And then for the foreigners, a valid passport and a work permit for the foreign applicants is required. It's a must. And those documents, the valid passport and the permit, they must not be expiring within a period of 6 months. Then the other document, which is a basic document, it's a police clearance certificate, which is valid or which is verifiable. Some students, when they get into the office, they come with certificates, police clearance certificates, which are not verifiable. What do we mean that by saying the police clearance is not verifiable? Within the Sace offices, excuse me, we have got a system of checking or of verifying whether the police clearance is a valid document or it's not a valid document. So if the police clearance certificate does not respond, it is the responsibility of the student to ensure that he acquires a police clearance certificate that is valid. And another thing, it is important to note that we are not requiring a name clearance, but a police clearance certificate. So it's important when the person visits the either SAPS or the office switch, because that is the company that has got a memorandum of understanding which says which we can verify the police clearance with. They must make sure that it's not a name clearance that they're applying for, but they must apply the police clearance for the police clearance certificate as required by the South African Council for Educators. These institutions, they know exactly if you say you want the police clearance certificate, not a name clearance, they know that if you want that, you want that. Note that the office will verify the police clearance. As I've said, that the qualification documents are also a requirement. As I've initially said, that they must not be in pictures forms. They must be in a PDF forms. That the photocopies, they must be clear, and they must be stamped, they must be, they must be certified. All the copies that are brought for application, they must be certified. By the qualification documents, I mean the graduation certificates together with the academic record that is on the university letterhead, the academic record that is stamped, and the academic record that is signed. Let's say, for instance, a person who was a Pgce student, or who is a Pgce student. The person must provide the initial qualification certificate, the initial graduation certificate. I made a mention of a BSc, an example of a BSc certificate earlier on. So which means if it's a Pgce student, the person must bring in a Pgce. The person must bring in the BSc certificate, graduation certificate, together with the academic record, which is on the university letterhead, which is stamped and signed. And over and above that, the person must also bring in either the proof of registration from the university. All these are applicable. This university letterhead, stamps and sign. That proof of registration, it must have all these things so that it can be verifiable, because there are some of the students who come into the office sometimes with very dodgy letters. I must mention that. That is why we've got a very good relationship with the University of Venda to ensure that when somebody comes with a document which is questionable, we then communicate with the university to say, can you please verify this document and validate it, whether it's a valid document or it's not a valid document. And then the proof of payment, the person or the applicant can make a payment at the bank, or if the person is making a payment directly here in the offices of Sace, in any office of Sace, the person can do that. And no cash is used, but we only take the card payments. Or the person can also pay online. Let's say a person has paid at the bank or has paid online. The person must bring the proof of payment into the office. But when the person brings the proof of payment into the office, we also get into the system to check whether that payment reflects on the system. Because previously what has happened is that some people, they make payments, once they acquire the proof of payment, they reverse the payment, then that money never gets received by the council, but the person holds that proof of payment. Hence, it is important that when a person comes with a proof of payment, that proof of payment will be checked to verify whether it does reflect on the Sace, on the council banking account. For the South African applicants, the new applicants, whether you are a student, whether you are a professionally qualified person, the payment is only 200 rands. I will mention later why I'm saying only 200 rands. For the foreigners, the new application, it's 400 rands. And then for updating, when you want to update, whether you want to update to say, now I applied as a student, now I've qualified, here are my documents, then the update fee is 50 rands. I'm saying this, I'm mentioning these amounts because some of the students, they fall into a trap of getting registered by the bogus people. Let me say that. They pay exorbitant fees These fees, they amount from 700 rand above or 400 rand for a South African student and above. So what I always say to students when they get here, if you are paying more than 200 rand for the Sace registration, you must know that that is not a Sace registration, it's something else. Because another thing that I need to mention is that we do not have agents that are working for the South African Council for Educators. Program director, I have to mention that with the students from Univen, they've fallen trap of these bogus people or bogus registration agents, whom the students say they normally stand in the gate to say they are Sace agents. And once those people, they come here, these documents that they bring here, they bring just fraudulent documents. They've graduated even to produce the Sace registration certificates or Sace registration letters, which are not responding. Those letters are not responding when you try to search them on the Sace system. I know that some of these students, when they do this, they do this knowingly, because when you say the person must remain in the waiting room while you check the document that the person has brought to the office, by the time you go back to the person, you find that the person has disappeared, which means that they know that they will get they will go to jail for that. When in a situation where a qualification has been lost, a declaration from the higher education institution where the qualification was obtained or from the Department of Education is required. The declaration must indicate that the qualification was completed and a certificate was issued. This document must be on the higher education institution's letterhead, dated, stamped, and signed. If it's a matric certificate, then the DBE, the person must approach DBE offices or provincial education offices to acquire the valid documents. They must not just go anywhere to acquire these documents, because we know there are special features that we can tell to say this is not the valid documents. Then we get onto our own systems, we find that this document is not legitimate. Then the banking details, the Sace banking details for those people who want to make payments at the bank. They are as appearing here. Well, I'm going to share the presentation afterwards for the benefit of those who will need the Sace banking details. But the banking details are also available on the Sace banking on the Sace website. What is important is that when the person makes a payment, do not write your name as the reference but write your ID number. Why is that? When a person writes the name as a reference, that money gets hanging on the Sace banking account, and it has to follow a process before it can be allocated to a relevant person. But once the person enters the ID number, his or her ID number, then it reflects immediately, and then the person, you will see the person on the system, even though the person is not registered, but he or she will appear as an automatic payment on the system. So it's important that when the students are making those payments, they make into the correct banking using the correct banking details, and they must also use their ID numbers. Well, whoever joins and remains within the teaching profession must have no criminal record, hence the police clearance, which I stated while I was mentioning the basic requirements. Teacher registrations ensure that everyone who stands in front of the teachers of the learners are fit to teach. Employers and principals, they know they have an obligation to verify whether the teachers within the school are all Sace registered. Fortunately, with most of the schools within Limpopo, they have made it a point to say, for an example, the Provincial Education Department, when there are appointments to be made, they make it a point to say they check with, or they verify with the Sace or with the council to say, kindly verify whether these people are Sace registered as they've declared that they are registered. And it is shocking that some of them, they go to an extent of submitting fake documents to the DBE or to the Provincial Education Department. Appointing a non-registered individual, they know that it constitutes misconduct. That is why the Provincial Education Department is very vigilant in terms of making sure that the student are Sace registered. The police clearance, which I spoke of earlier, it came to effect from the 1st of January 2019, which states that everyone applying for the registration, including updates, renewals, must submit a South African police clearance certificate from SAPS not older than 6 months at the time of submission, irrespective of country or origin. This does not apply to those that are currently fully registered and have lost their Sace certificates and are applying for a duplicate Sace certificate. The police clearance, it's not required for those who are fully registered and they have lost their certificates. Then the Sace offices, when opting for a walk-in registration process, Sace registration applications may be done in any of the Sace offices, but only the Sace offices. And then the provincial office is located in 25 Rhodes Drift Office Park, that is in Bendo, near Sycad Center, along Bendo Drive. For those who know Bendo Drive, they might know that there is a school close by, which is called Uwa School. So along Bendo Drive, there are Sace offices, and it's also very close to the Capricorn FM, where Capricorn FM is located. Then Sace has no agents, as I've mentioned earlier. My advice, or our advice from the council, is for the students to stay as far away as possible from the bogus Sace representatives, or they must be prepared to fail the jail sentences and the possibility of being removed from Sace or being blocked to even come and apply for registration. I believe my colleagues, the Sace registration manager, if somebody talks about blocking and getting people arrested, there was an article in the media in the past week where we had some people who came to the offices of Sace and Centurion and other offices, and they got arrested. So that is why these people, when the students they see, or when the prospective teachers, when they see that their documents are a bit questionable, they go away immediately. Once you say, can you please remain in the waiting area, I'm still verifying your documents, they run far away, as far away as possible. Then that is all for now for the teacher registration. I'm just going to shoot straight to the Code of Professional Ethics, because the request was to include also the Sace Code of Conduct. Well, when you look at what I have flagged there, Sace Code of Professional Ethics in the middle there, in that oval in the middle, the educators' professional and ethical relationships, they are different relationships. The educator has a relationship with a learner. He must maintain, or she must maintain, a professional relationship with a learner. The educator must maintain a professional relationship with the colleagues. The educator must maintain the professional relationship with the employer. The educator...
Madam Mele,
yep.
I can see the end of your colleague, Madam Lichava. Maybe she wanted to say something.
Okay.
Good day, colleagues, and thanks, Chair. I just wanted to request that I have shared the electronic or the virtual register, so that if possible, it be shared with the participants so they can complete it, or we open the chat box so that it can be pasted there, and then colleagues can copy the link and complete it. That was my plea, the virtual register. I have emailed it to us so that we can share it, because on our side we can share it, but we would like to have and know who attended the virtual session. It's a Google Form register. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Won't it be right if we can send to our students after the meeting? Then they'll be able to go, and well, I've downloaded the attendance register as well, but I can still share it with our students.
Thank you.
Can I proceed?
You can proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mel Chaba, and I would like to acknowledge the presence of Mel Chaba, who is the head registration and teacher professionalization in the council. When I introduced the other members, I had not seen that she joined a little bit earlier after I had checked those who are who are present. While I was still talking about the relationships that the educator must maintain, the educator must maintain professional relationship between himself or herself with the employer, the relationship between the educator and the community, the educator between himself and the parents, the educator between himself and the council. The educator must also maintain a professional relationship between himself or herself and the council and the profession at large. I'm going to speak a little bit about this later on, but I must start by saying the educators who are registered provisionally or fully registered with the South African Council for Educators, in terms of the Sace Code of Professional Ethics, they acknowledge that the teaching is a noble profession. When we say a profession is a noble profession, it means there are standards that a person must maintain and must make sure that he is not in breach of the employment contract. The educators acknowledge that the attitude, the dedication, the self-discipline, ideals, training, and conduct of the teaching profession determine the quality of education. You will remember that earlier on I said says South African Council for Educators must ensure the credibility of the teaching profession. So which means that that quality of education forms part of the profession, of the credibility of the profession. Well, they must also acknowledge and uphold and promote basic human rights. You know that our South African Constitution, it speaks volumes about the basic human rights. They commit themselves, therefore, to do all within their power in exercising their professional duties, to act in accordance with their ideals of the profession as expressed in the code, and they act in a proper and becoming manner, or in a becoming way, such that their behavior does not bring the teaching profession into disrepute. We've got well, I'm teaching to the students, but because they are also part of the teaching profession, I have to mention that once a person stands in front of the teacher, the issue of being a professional, it does not end at 2:30 if the school starts from 8 to 2:30. It does not begin at 7:30 if the school begins at 7:30, resumes at 7:30. But a teacher is always a teacher. Whether you are at home, wherever you are an educator. You must maintain and uphold the integrity of the teaching profession at all times. Well, the relationships I spoke about earlier on, I'm going to flag them and then touch a little bit of them. The educator must respect the dignity, beliefs, and constitutional rights of learners, and in particular, the children, which includes the rights to privacy and confidentiality. When I present the Sace Code of Professional Ethics, and I'm dealing with the issues of respecting the rights of learners, there are those student teachers or teachers, when they are practicing or when they are in class, they deny the learners their rights to go to the bathrooms. They deny the learners their rights to go and drink water. They make the learners to keep standing for an extended time, and all those things. All those, they form part of the corporal punishment. If you make a person to kneel down on the ground and or to exercise the corporal punishment in a form of a stick and so on and so forth. There are various forms of corporal punishment. What is important is for the student teachers or the teachers to ensure that they respect the rights of learners. Each and every learner, they must treat every learner in a manner that is dignified. The teachers acknowledge the uniqueness, the individuality, and the specific needs of each learner, guiding and encouraging each learner to realize his or her potential. The teachers, the educator strives to enable learners to develop a set of values consistent with the fundamental rights contained in the Constitution of South Africa, and an educator exercises authority with compassion. That a teacher has got authority, it does not necessarily mean that the educator must bully the learners, because there are those educators whom, when they get an opportunity of standing in front of the learners, they want to make sure that they are known, that or their presence is felt in a bully manner. So whenever a person is in front of the learners, he or she must remember that in terms of the Sace Code of Professional Ethics, one must exercise authority with compassion. Avoid any form of humiliation and refrains from any form of abuse, physical or psychological, like calling people, calling the learners, name calling, body shaming, and all those things. They form part of this, and they are against the Code of Professional Ethics. If you do that, you are acting against the Code of Professional Ethics. You must, as a student, teacher, who is in front of the learners. You must refrain from improper physical contact with learners. I always say rubbing your shoulders. I'm not talking about the rubbing shoulders in the form of rubbing shoulders. There are those people when they are standing, they always want to lean next to other people. They must take note that in terms of the code, that is an improper contact. If the person says, "Hey, move away from me," please don't. Whether it's a teacher, it's another teacher, it's another student teacher, it's another learner, please refrain from doing that. The educator with the learner continued. Well, there are many of them, but I'm going to touch a few here. But I just want to focus on the sexual harassment, whether it's physical or otherwise. There are those people, because our schools, some of our schools, they've got learners who have got big bodies. Sometimes it's not only big bodies, but the age of the learners is almost the same as the age of the student teacher or the age of the teacher. Make sure that you refrain from the sexual harassment. Sexual harassment comes in different forms and shapes. Sexual relationships comes in different forms and shapes. Sending a learner an SMS or a WhatsApp to say, "Hey, can I see you during the break time?" That is outside of a professional relationship. So the student teachers and the educators must always make sure that they refrain from doing that. Using appropriate language. Make sure that you use appropriate language at all times. And the behavior, it must be acting in such a way that it elicits respect from the learners. It must not be in a bully way, though. An educator takes responsible steps to ensure the safety of the learner. When I'm dealing with the issues of safety and security of learners, I also take the teachers along the issues of ensuring that they protect our learners within the school situation and also outside of the school situation. How in the outside in the school situation, make sure that you make the learners aware. What is it that is taken or falls under the GBV, the gender-based violence or the violence? What is it that is violence? How do you identify violence? And so on and so forth. Well, you, as a teacher, you do not have to abuse the position. You do not neglect any of the responsibilities, because some of the educators, when they go to school, when they are given or they are assigned responsibilities, they do not plan their work. They try by all means to not to do what they are supposed to do, and they become very violent. Once you do that, you must know that you are acting against the Sace Code of Professional Ethics. And once you are found, you will be facing the Fit to Teach committee, which I spoke about earlier on. Well, whatever that I was talking about in terms of maintaining relationship with the learners, it also applies with maintaining relationship between an educator and her colleagues. You must not undermine the status of an authority of the colleagues. Some of the student teachers, some of the educators, they say, "Hey, Mina, I've studied B.Ed. I can't be led by somebody who did a diploma and still maintains a diploma," and so on and so forth. Watch out. There is Sace Code of Professional Ethics behind you. Then the responsibilities assigned to colleagues, I've mentioned them. The use of proper procedures, I've spoken about that when I was talking about the making learners to stand and so on and so forth. You must promote, as student teachers and as teachers, gender equality and refrain from sexual harassment, physical or otherwise. the use of appropriate language, I've spoken about it. Avoid any form of humiliation and refrain from any form of abuse, whether physical or otherwise. Then the educator with the relationship between the educator and the profession. You must acknowledge that exercising your professional duties occurs within a context requiring cooperation with and support of the colleagues. No one is an island. You cannot say when you get into school, you don't know anything because you are too old to tell me what to do. What is important is to know that education, for quality education to take place, there must be cooperation and support amongst the staff members, and the behavior will say everything. It must ensure that it respects the dignity, or it enhances the dignity and status of the teaching profession. You must, as student teachers, I'm glad because you have attended this session. It's the Code of Professional Ethics states that you must keep abreast of the educational trends and developments, which is what you are currently doing, and you must go beyond today's session. Promote ongoing development on the teaching profession, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. But in a nutshell, you must remember that as a professional, you maintain the professionalism within the school premises and outside of the school premises. You refrain from any illegal activities. That is one thing that makes people not to, the applicants at the Sace offices or online and so on and so forth, not to get registered. I can remember Mem Holoboto will laugh at me because they know, they normally say, hey, Limpopo province, you seem to have a lot of murderers and rapists. And those people will never get employed if they do not follow the procedures or the processes of the council, the regulations of the council. The educator has, this is the continuation of the relationship between the educator and another educator. As I've said, in a nutshell, you must make sure that you ensure that you respect everybody, you work cooperatively with everybody, you respect the authorities, you must ensure that you comply with the procedures, because when you get to school, when you get to schools, there will be procedures, and procedures, there will not be procedures as per the Sace, the South African Council for Educators only. Some procedures and policies, they will be by the ELRC, which I spoke of earlier on, by the Department of Basic Education, by the Provincial Education Department. There are many other stakeholders who have got a stake in education, and they've got, they are recognized to maintain the procedure, to maintain the good code within the schools. Once you do not do what you are supposed to do, the harshest sanctions can be applicable to a person who acts against the code, the Sace Code of Professional Ethics. It's not that when we are saying the harshest sanction by Sace, we are only for the harshest sanction, but it is to alert people to say, when you act against the Sace Code of Professional Ethics, you must be aware that even the offenses, they are not the same. Some of the offenses you may be able to continue to teach. Some of the offenses you may be able to continue to teach under conditions, at certain conditions, while some of the offenses, they will warrant for a removal of the perpetrator of the names from the register of educators, which means you will be struck off the roll. And once you get struck off the roll of the Sace register, no employer can employ you Another thing which is important to note is that once a person gets struck off the roll of the South African Council for Educators register, the names get submitted to the provincial education departments, all of them, all 9 of them, which means if you have done something, if you have been struck off the roll because you have done something wrong in Limpopo, you cannot go to practice in Gauteng, you cannot go to practice in Free State, KZN, all of the provinces, because once the name gets struck off the register, the departments, all the provincial departments, they get informed. The names are submitted to all these provincial education departments. Submission of the struck off names to the Department of Social Development is also one thing that people need to be aware of. It's not only about you being an educator. Let's say you have violated the rights of the children, of the learners, because learners, they are part of the cohorts that is called children. So once you violate the rights of the children, once you get struck off the roll, your name will also be submitted to the Department of Social Development for inclusion in the National Child Protection Register for them to be declared not suitable to work with children anywhere in the country. And Sace has got a responsibility to report. It is mandatory that Sace reports the perpetrators of any violence to SAPS, to different departments, so that these people, they can be red flagged to say these are not supposed to get in contact with anyone or any child in the Republic of South Africa. So you cannot do something in Limpopo and then you think that you can run away and go to another province. If the name of an educator is struck off the roll, the register of educators is kept by the South African Council for Educators. The educator shall not, withstanding anything to the contrary contained in the Act, be deemed to have resigned with effect from the day following immediately after the day on which the educator's name was struck off the roll, which means the day you get struck off the roll, the day immediately after that day, you are deemed not appointable by any department because you have been struck off the roll by the South African Council for Educators. But I hopefully, because you have attended and participated in this session, I hope that you will go into the schools, because we always encourage our student teachers to say when they go to the schools, they must uphold and maintain the integrity of the teaching profession. Because you have attended this session, you will go into the schools informed of what you are supposed to do and what you are not supposed to do, and you will raise the flag of the University of Venda high, and you will make us proud. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. What's going on? I didn't want to reveal my, so I've just done something which is not proper. Thank you, ma'am. I'll leave a vote of thanks to Dr. Ndwamato, but I wanted to see if there are questions. But in the chat line, I've just typed one question for you colleagues from Sace. From my side. Can I ask it?
You may ask it, and the colleagues, we will share, we will collectively answer the questions. Thank you.
I've put the question on the chat line. I wanted to test whether people are able to see that question of mine. Next week, because of challenges with the time, as we have indicated, we couldn't. Oh, there's a hand by Ma'am Lichava. Can you take the podium? Maybe you will want to answer that question.
I would like to, thank you, Chair. I would like to confirm first that yes, we are able to see the question.
Okay.
And then that I can read the question, and then we will then respond when it's time for us to take responses. I think we are still taking questions.
Okay.
So let me read the question so that when the time comes for the SACE team to respond, they have heard this question, especially those who are not able to see the question. The question reads as thus: colleagues from SACE, is it possible to get one person to talk to our year 1 to 2 students who are currently writing their examinations? We will hold their send-off workshops on Tuesday, the 20th of June, 2023 from 10 o'clock. So that is the question. And then as and when we deal with answers, I think it will also be answered. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Students and colleagues who are in attendance, if you have got, just go to chat line and type your question. You'll get a Q&A section where you'll be able to type your question. I'm not sure whether students are. Students, can you raise up your hand if it's possible? I don't know. I don't think it's possible, but you can still, maybe it's because Funaram Zuri, can you talk? Can you ask your question?
Hello, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I have a question on the qualification part. I think I didn't hear the presenter clearly about the requirements when it comes to the when you are registering for SACE. She mentioned that if, let's say, you're doing, I think she mentioned BA or BC, and then you are also doing Pgce. So my question was, when you apply, which qualification do I have to upload? Is it for both BSc and the Pgce? Let's say I did become economics, and then I went on to study Pgce. Which documents do I have to upload? Is it for both, for the degree, for the economics, and also for the Pgce, or is only for the Pgce, especially when it comes to the academic record? Which one is it required? Is it for both qualification or only for the Pgce only? Thank you.
Can we get another student? Maybe another one, so that we could have 3 questions. So maybe if we don't want to just idle, let me put these questions to our colleagues. Colleagues from SACE, we've got 2 questions. The first one asked in the chat line. Hope on the PPD. Can you ask your question?
Okay, I wanted to ask if you are coming there to do our face to face. Do we come with all our documents? Then we get our temporary SACE certificate same time, or we have to come back or something. So I just wanted to know if we bring all our documents that you said we should bring, which is the ID, the academic, because I'm doing Pgce and also my degree. So do we come with all our documents which are certified, and then we get our SACE certificate same time?
Okay, colleagues, Ma'am Lichava.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will respond, and the manager will respond, and the 6 colleagues will also add. I wanted to respond to the question about the presentation to year 1 and year 2. that would be highly appreciated because it's part of onboarding into the profession. That will be done. Let me commit, and then we will communicate on email outside the session regarding that session for the first and the second year students. There will be we will present to them, and we have to agree that what time do we start, what time do we end. That's number one. And the other question, other colleagues will respond to other questions. I'm only going to respond to the one of face-to-face. Colleagues, we have online registration portal, and which is meant to save us time and cost, and also to enable us to go green as a country. And the portal, as long as we have connectivity, is efficient, and it can assist us to make sure that time and cost are not strained, because those are precious resources. That being the case, if colleagues want to come and register and use the university resources lately, how we do it is that we request the university to avail a lab or a place where there is undisrupted network connection, so that the student educators go in the lab, computer lab, or into a room like they have done on the 29, 30, 31 in Wits, and yesterday in Western Cape University of Western Cape, yesterday we were busy with them. The student educators go into the lab and they connect to computers, they create their logins, and we shall have worked to prepare for the day. And then they create their logins, they log into the system, they upload their documents, we have the list on our side, we take the list, we approve them, no need to be carrying papers around. So only one colleague from Sace can be in that room to make sure that if there are questions or challenges, they are being communicated. The only critical thing when we do online registration with student teachers on-site in campus is that we need to have a list, so that those who have already uploaded their documents, they let us know, and then we start the process of approving on our side. So if we are to go that route, for me, which is the best and the most efficient, there's no need to be having hard copies, but student teachers can have their documents as soft copy saved as PDF, and then come the date we agreed on the time, we can use 2 hours to go and register, depending on availability and the number of resources that they will be using. And if they have the smartphones that enable the iPad, the laptops, they can use their resources and upload and apply online. That's number one. Unless if there is more information, the manager in the province can also advise, but other colleagues can also advise, especially Mr. Mashaba, who has been part of this, to say, how did it go when he was working on this with Wits, as the only employee of council who went to Wits, and we ended up registering student teachers because we used the Wits at lab. The students were inside the computer lab at Wits with only one employee applying online, and we approving remotely. Thank you. Mbele, and then Mem Kholobot.
Thank you, Mem Chaba, and thanks for the response. The question by Lufuno on whether both documents, the initial qualification, for an example, the BA plus PGCE documents, need to be submitted, the answer is yes. The student or the applicant, if the application is for the provisional registration, the applicant needs to submit the BCom graduation certificate together with the academic record plus the Pgce registration if the person is still a student, or if the person has already qualified, the person must submit both the BCom qualification, graduation qualification, plus the academic record and the Pgce graduation certificate plus the academic record. So both graduation certificates, they go together with the academic records. I hope that one it's clear. Then to take the second question, which was on whether when the student comes to the office with the documents, with all the documents, is it possible to get the certificate, the Sace registration at the same time? The answer is yes. If all the documents submitted are valid, they've been verified and they are valid. If all the documents have been verified, like for instance, let me make an example. If the system of verifying the police clearance is down, let's say it's not a safe system, that one. It's either a SAPS system or it's an AFI-switch system. If the subsystem is down and the student is coming with a SAPS police clearance, it means we cannot verify the police clearance. Or alternatively, if a student comes with the AFI-switch police clearance and AFI-switch system is down, we cannot verify the police clearance, which means we cannot be able to do that at the same time. But if everything is well and everything is in order, it means that the application can be processed and everything can be finalized at the same time. Thank you. My other colleagues can add the manager. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Ma'am Kuku, I think you've covered everything. I was just worried about the issue of the same time because sometimes we have technicalities, including issues related to load shedding. So we don't want situations where, you know, student teachers would be saying, but you promise. So if the situations allows us to be able to assist them on the spot, there's nothing that would stop us to assist them on the spot. Thank you.
Thanks, colleagues. Students, sorry. Oh, no. Mr. Mashaba is a colleague. Can you continue, Mr. Mashaba? It's our colleague from Sace.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I just wanted to add on the question of Pgce and a junior qualification that there was a resolution that was taken by council to accommodate those students who do not have as yet the graduation certificate, that in place of a graduation certificate, we also accept the completion letter, which must meet the requirements as follows: that the completion letter should be on the university letterhead, it should have the official university stamp, and it should be certified. So for that junior qualification and the academic record, if you submit the completion letter, then it will meet our requirements. The same applies to the Pgce qualification. If you have completed, we need the full academic record that indicates that the qualification has been obtained, and it should be accompanied with the completion letter that is on the university letterhead, and it does have the official university stamp. Then it will suffice for registration. Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, students, do you still have questions to ask? I think Funoram Zuri, your follow-up. Yes.
Yes. Can you just please clarify also on the fees that are applicable for us that are student teachers at this point, and we're going to do teaching practice in July? How much is it applicable for us? And then and how long will our registration last? When is it going to expire? Can you just clarify on that one as well?
Can I take that one?
Yeah, you can take that one. I think this is
okay.
one of the last questions.
Yes, well, thank you. While I was doing the presentation, I said the South African applicants, if it's a new registration, that the registration fee is 200 rands for the new registration. But if it's a foreign applicant, the registration fee is 400 rands. And then with the issue of how long does that remain in force, if it's a provisional registration, it remains in force for a period of a year. And the certificate that gets issued in a form of a letter, it's clearly stated that this will remain in force until such and such a date. But if it's a certificate, currently it's just an ongoing for professional qualified applicants. Thank you.
Okay, there are two more people to ask. I'll give a chance to open APPD, then Tabel Ramanisha. Before I would like also to pose this question. From our side as the university, are we allowed to send students to teaching practice without clearance from Sace? So hope you can come with that. Yes, with your second question.
Okay,
then
I wanted to ask.
Tabula Ramashia
I
will
wanted
also
to
follow.
ask. I wanted to do a follow-up on my question, or are you guys going to come to Univen like you did to other universities?
Okay, Tabula Ramashia.
Okay, my question is in terms of registration, since now that we are going to be doing practicals, we are supposed to do the provincial, is it provincial or what the provisional
one.
Yeah, the provisional registration. After, and we are supposed to pay the 200. After completing the degree and we want to do the permanent one, are we still going to pay the very same 200, or the charges are now reduced because we are already having the first one?
Okay, colleagues from Sace, I see Me Lichava. You can shoot.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. Let me quickly respond to the colleague who just asked the question, but I wanted to answer the question of coming to Univen. Regarding payments, first-time applicants, when you apply for the first time with Sace and you don't have any number or you are not in the Sace register, you pay 200 if you are Sace South African citizen, 400 when you are foreign national. Then, when you come and update your status from being provisional to professionally qualified after receiving your transcript, not even waiting for the graduation and the certificate, immediately you receive the transcript that confirm that the qualification has been completed. You come through with all other documents that are being required by Sace, and then you only pay 50 rands admin fee for Sace to can process your document and update your status. Whether you are South African citizen or foreign national, the updating fee is only 50 rands. And then the question on Sace coming to Univen. I think this one we're not going to respond to in this platform, but we will have to be guided by the university, because we have spoken that, or we have discussed that we can do this process two ways, either where we send one colleague and we conduct online, one colleague to just come and support the applicants when they upload their documents, when they connect, so that when there are challenges, the Sace official is on site to guide. That's one. The other one, which we normally used to follow traditionally in the past, which was not effective, because with that one, we would register a few and have to travel back and take some of the documents with us back to the office, where we bring the colleague to come and register the applicants online. So we will then, outside this meeting, take a discussion, and the university will have to decide which route are they going. Are they going the route of having Sace, one Sace representative coming and being on site to support online registration on a set day? Or do we go the traditional route of having Sace colleagues coming and register a few and then coming back to complete others? Because when we register on the spot, on site, normally we don't finish doing the work because we have to capture. Unlike if we have 200 students capturing themselves, and our work is only to approve or reject, which is more efficient. So we will take that discussion outside with the university to guide and assist which one will be more efficient to assist you, our student educators, with registration. Let me leave it here, unless if colleagues have more inputs they can add.
Melchior, obviously, will as university will opt for the first one, where you'll be sending one colleague to come to Univen, and where you'll be able to assist our students to complete online, and on the other side, you will be approving.
Thank you very much.
I also ask a question myself, whether as a university, are we allowed to send these final year students to go to school without being cleared by Sace? Nko, can you pose your question before Melchior could delve into them? Nko? Nko? Nko?
Yes, sir. Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's not really a question. I just wanted to say, for the case of them coming to us there on campus, can you please like try to set a date which can accommodate all of us, since now we're going to be on different places, like others will be at home and others will be working the side of campus.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Melchior, I wanted you to maybe respond to my question.
Okay, thank you, Chair. My response is, it is the wish of council to protect and make sure its members are taken care of. However, there are some realities and practical situation that sometimes make us to step back and look into the ideal situation and the real situation, to say ideally it would be good if this is the situation, but the reality on the ground is that it's not possible. Then that being the background to my question, to say if it was according to the ideal way, it would be good for us to have our student educators going to the schools as and when they have been registered with Sace. However, we know there are challenges that can come in the way, looking into the timelines. But if ever we are able to mitigate and register them, and when they go for practice teaching, they are already registered, then they will be going to practice teaching as members of council, as students, and also knowing that they have council who protect and care about them. And then whenever, whatever happens when they are there, they know they have council which is protecting them and the university which is protecting them. However, if it's not possible, due to timelines, we are not punitive as council. What we do is say, let us allow them to go, but then put measures in place to make sure that they get registered as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, I think it's time now that we need to give Dr. Ndamato to render a vote of thanks. We are left with 10 minutes to close. We added 30 minutes so that you could have Q&A. Dr. Ndamato, are you ready to render the item on vote of thanks?
Yeah, I'm ready, Dr. Chikota.
Yeah, you can take off.
Yeah, Dr. Chikota is the program facilitator. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the University of Venda, Faculty of Humanities, Social Sciences and Education, and the Teaching Practice Committee, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the distinguished guests, speakers, and organizers who have made this session a success. I would also like to express our deepest gratitude to our esteemed presenters. Your invaluable insights, knowledge, and expertise have provided an enriching experience for both our students and us. You have proved meticulous, especially when you responded to all the questions that were asked during this session. Our students now know what it entails to become a teacher. They now know their terrain and what they can and cannot do when they go to schools. A special word of appreciation also goes to our teaching practice chairperson, Dr. Chikota. Your meticulous planning, attention to detail, and tireless efforts have ensured the smooth execution of this session. Your commitment and hard work behind the scenes have not gone unnoticed, and we are truly grateful for your dedication to make this session a memorable and fruitful experience for everyone involved. Finally, I would like to thank our students for their attendance and participation through questions and answers. The knowledge gained from this session will continue to inspire and drive positive change in your endeavors towards becoming credible teachers. Thank you all and have a wonderful day. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ndamato. Colleagues and students, we have shared the link through the chat line, and we also emailed you the link after the meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. 어떡하지? 그 나이가 어떡하? 太过去呀！